Okay. Waiting for BlendedPlanet. Oh, there we go. So apparently we've been live for 10 seconds. Yeah, and unfortunately, just so's you know, my webcam is not plugged in at the moment, and I don't want to stop the live stream to remedy that. So we don't care. Okay, let's get busy. What did we do yesterday? Well, we did this shot. Yeah, so we knocked that out a couple days ago. We did this shot yesterday in the morning. Excuse me. And then we had the live stream where we did this shot, which I've made a few little amendments to since going offline. Hey, Pen Pen. It looks okay. Looks okay. We're going to just get busy on this. So the basic timeline here is everything kind of moves pretty fast, so I'm probably going to focus a lot on frame-by-frame animation. TNR looks behind, double checks to make sure the coast is clear, sees something interesting mounted on the, not the wall. I've got to figure out how I'm going to do that one. I may not do that today because I'm going to have to draw some sort of, there's going to have to be some sort of structure that these swords are mounted on and some decorative junk around it that suggests that, you know, it's there, well, you know, for decorative purposes. So, but when you're in her position, you'll take whatever you can get. So that's going to be a smash zoom on her eyes. She grabs the sword, goes to the tent, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so let's just get busy and start rocking and rolling with good old frame-by-frame animation. So, unfortunately, the trickiest thing to do with frame-by-frame animation is a turn in 3D space. But anyway, we've got that blocked in. So basically the scene starts with this, which I think probably would benefit from an eye blink, but we don't need to specify that here. And then if we're going to just follow the storyboard, we're actually doing the same thing again. So she looks back there, and I'm going to just say, let's just be real loose about this. Okay, there. Do we want onion skins? I'm not a huge fan, but okay, let's just basically get the general again, kind of keep it loose. Let's turn the skins back off. And then this is going to have a smash zoom on it to a degree. Checks there. Checks there. Yep, I like it. Okay, so trying to move fast so I can just be kind of really sensitive to what I'm seeing in my mind and try to capture it as quickly as I can here. That is a little out of place. I feel like I drew her eyes too big. Let's just do that again. When you mess it up, just try again. You know? I like that better. Got a little bit more of an edge. Okay, so boom, boom, boom. Yep. Obviously, she's all prettied up. Hey, Maria. So we got this. Get this nice flow going around here. Well, today has been an interesting day. The last 2 days actually have been really interesting in the markets. Happily, I had mentioned the other day on the stream that whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I mentioned the other day on the stream that I recently actually started studying technical trading, trying to learn some sort of algorithmic ways to respond intelligently to the market. And by and large, the indicators that I've paid attention to and followed the rules strictly have paid off quite well. There is a way, so the problem with crypto. So we basically cashed out all our Bitcoin, like right before it tanked. we cashed out our Bitcoin and Ethereum. We basically emptied out all of our crypto, and like 2 days later, the whole market just went to crap. So I was like, yeah, call that one right. So then this morning you had a weird situation where there were definitely signs that Bitcoin was in the long term. There were no signs that were positive, right? But in the short term, meaning within about a 2-hour window, there were signs that looked quite positive, right? So I'm like, okay, the problem that you're going to have, so consider yourself warned if you're into this or trying to maybe think about learning about it, is that if you're using Robinhood, which we do, the problem is that with crypto you're almost always going to pay. It's not that you pay a premium or that they tack fees on or anything like that, because they don't. But you are going to get a situation where the tendency is going to be for the real-time price. The price you pay is about maybe $300 more than the actual real-time price that's showing. So that kind of sucks, because this is the problem with crypto within narrow time frames, is that what's going to happen is you're going to really have to have success on that run for a good, let's say if you're watching a 5-minute or a 1-minute chart, if you don't get kind of lucky within that first hour and a half, then you might still be successful if you in theory, between your buying and your selling. But the problem is, because of that spread that results from the little bit more that you seem to be paying, both when you buy and sell, so it's like you get a lower price when you sell and a higher price when you buy. So, but that's not the worst thing in the world, because for most people that's a good thing, probably because it forces you to only operate within longer time frames, which are going to be much safer. So you're looking for trends that spread over days and weeks, not trends that spread over minutes and hours. Hey, Tom doing art. So this morning I saw a sign on a 2-hour chart that looked like this. Basically like this. I saw a higher high and a higher low. So then with the method I use, I said, okay, that's well established, and then you got a 10 and a 30 moving average that are floating around, and have they crossed? And what happened was the moving averages crossed right here. So we had this trend, and the cross was right here. So then that's at 2 hours, 2-hour candlesticks, if you will, which said to me, okay, let's divide that by 4 and say, let's look at 30 minutes. So 30 minutes fits 4 times into 2 hours. What's a 30-minute chart telling us? And what happened was there was this, on the 30-minute chart, there was this perfect entry point. So I'm like, okay, we'll take our chances, because if you have the same pattern at the lower time frame, it's effectively supported by the larger time frame, because this trend is already well established. So you've kind of got a safety margin, at least within, I don't know, let's say between 4 and 16 cycles of this time frame. You could think of it that way. And basically, it's not a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination, but most of the time, if you follow that methodology, it's not quite that simple, but that's pretty much the gist of it. Generally, it works pretty well. So the problem is, if the ups and downs within your time frame, well, let's put it this way. Let's say within that time frame you had sort of a target, and let's say the target is, you want to make a couple $100, in a maybe 4 hours or something, right? Well, the problem is, if the actual price you enter at is $300 higher, then the basic trend within that time frame has to do kind of better than it should have to in order to just be profitable. So it's pretty risky. I mean, it really is. it's not for everyone, and I'm a pretty risk averse guy actually, but I'm increasingly feeling more confident in the oops, I didn't mean to do that. I'm feeling more confident in the methodologies that I'm using, because when I follow the rules religiously, I always seem to pretty much not get in a situation. What you don't want to do is you enter the market and then it just happens that at that very moment everything turns south. And it can happen. It does happen. What you don't want to do is say, "Oh crap, I guess I'll wait and hope. I'll wait and hope that it turns around." That's like the stupidest thing you can do, and I've done it. It's a really stupid thing to do because you're gonna wind up taking a loss a lot of the time. Well, the problem is if that happens, your correct response is to immediately just resell and say, "Okay, I'll try to find a entry point later." If you do that, you're probably going to take a little loss, but maybe like $20 or something, right? It's not going to be a big loss. But that's more true with equities, like stocks and stuff. With crypto, you can take a couple $100 bath in a hurry, just because, as I say, the buy price seems to always be a little higher than you thought it was going to be, and the sell price always seems to be a little lower. So crypto on Robinhood, I'm not like completely thrilled with, but if you're working the longer time frames, like let's say days, the thing is that the spread of price within days is sufficiently low that the pattern you're looking for that has underlying support is likely to far exceed, let's say this is the spread, so this would be your profit range, right? You're more likely, it's way more. Okay, there, OBS reconnected. So Maria, did you did you do Bitcoin or something else? We had Bitcoin and Ethereum, basically because that's all you can trade on Robinhood actually. Other than Dogecoin, I did in fact make like $25 on Dogecoin a couple months ago when Elon Musk blinked and everybody said Dogecoin, and so I thought, you know what, we'll just have some fun and see if I can turn a profit within like 2 hours or something, and I did. I mean, it was like $25. Nothing quite that useful, but so yeah, Bitcoin, Ethereum's today. I will say that from what I can see, not being an expert by any stretch, the buy signs are not there yet for Ethereum because of what happened yesterday. Yesterday, everybody took a bath, right? I mean, the market dropped a significant. It spiked down. Like, I mean, yesterday it wasn't exactly Black Monday. It wasn't like last March, but it was a bad day. From our perspective, because we're watching the technical indicators and making the decisions ahead of the game. It's like if you go back to 2008. Let me tell you what happened. I'll tell you this story. This is in 2008. What I did was what a lot of people do, which is I had a sum of money with a broker and in a mutual fund. So what I find interesting about this is that at that point in time, when the market started tanking because of the housing crisis and everything, my father-in-law wisely pulled all his money out of the market. He just basically said, "Yeah, we're just going to exit." How he made that decision, I don't know. But anyway, so I call my broker guy, and I say, "Look, this is happening in the United States. If we were to like shift this money over to a fund that's based on European companies, would we be somewhat protected?" "Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, we can do that." So he gets his commission, moves the money, and then a week later, everything in Europe simply followed the United States. Now he knew that was going to happen. He knew that was going to happen, no question. But I didn't. I was ignorant. I hadn't boned up on it. I hadn't studied it. I didn't realize and see. But even then, the interesting thing though is even then in 2008, it actually only took about 4 months for the equity to recover. In other words, for it to get back to where it was took about 4 months, which isn't horrible. I mean, it's like, oh, kind of this sucks, but it's hardly the end of the world in the big scheme of things. But okay, any advice trying to stop Tahoma crashes? Jaman, it would be okay. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and another one. Okay. Um, yeah. I mean, I have, by the way, mixed feelings about in the long run. I think um, from the standpoint of the technical, uh, okay. Let me rephrase this. I'm not an expert, but in very layman's terms, Ethereum's different because the supply and demand is actually controlled to a degree by governance on the part of the people that have it. So it's really different from Bitcoin, and there is a lot of sentiment against Bitcoin because it's starting to show some of the weaknesses of it, especially as the blockchain gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Um, there are some reasons to think it's not the best solution in terms of a long-term crypto answer, right? But it's certainly got the most momentum by far, obviously. So it would be my judgment at this point that probably Ethereum is actually the better currency, but it's not the better investment at the moment. So, so anyway, Jaman, I would say that we'd probably have to know more. The thing that I've found is the most turbulent or the most likely to cause some kind of crash with Tahoma usually has to do with sub scenes. Um, it happened yesterday. I've only had like 2 crashes in the last month. I mean, I've had sort of like lockup conditions, and I've had situations where things started to get funky. Actually the best overall advice for anybody in regard to stability with Tahoma is probably 2 things. Number one is in your preferences, go ahead and set up autosave so that your scene gets saved periodically. Where the heck is that? Maybe it's under scene. Where is the autosave? It's in here somewhere. Right here, saving. So, so as you can see, I don't have it set up, but you can turn on autosaving. Excuse me, sorry about that. So there's one way to protect yourself. The other thing is, if you see anything that's slightly strange with Tahoma, it's generally recommended to just save your work and at the very least reload the scene, but more probably just close Tahoma and restart it, because Tahoma, even though it does crash sometimes, it's very fault tolerant as software goes. In other words, things can be starting to act weird, and if you reload it, it kind of it does a little house cleaning, it would appear. And, you know, so this shot is going to be, I'm just going to stick this in here, but I think what we need to do is we need to have some sort of really decorative structure. So I'm going to find some photo reference for this. And then I'm just spitballing here, but let's just say let's create a shield. Like there's a shield. Okay, and then this is, ostensibly this would have some sort of feet down at the bottoms that it's resting on. And then maybe to punch home this shot, what we might do potentially here, let me think about this. It's almost like I probably want to whip her back this way. So she'll look and then she'll turn around again, so I don't need to redraw that. But the idea is that she sees this. So let's just think, Mr. Dyslexia here has got to think about this for a minute. If she turns around and looks like that, then actually this is wrong. Okay, so sorry about that. Typical me. This really needs to come over here, like so, and then we'd have a silhouette of her head right here. Am I right? Now I could have this backwards because I tend to flip things because of like mild dyslexia. So she flips this way, and now we kind of have the same situation here. I'm sorry, here as here. So you almost could do you almost could dolly the camera over, which doesn't really make total sense. So I need to think about the structure of the room she's in, because again, I have a really hard time with dollying around in 3D space, like, and then remembering which way things need to go. Hey Soda Pop, hello and goodbye. Well, I wish Soda Pop wasn't leaving. Um, okay, OBS just reconnected. I wish Soda Pop wasn't leaving because actually, I've never, I have never actually proactively gone into my preferences and done whatever it is that you do to make sure GPU acceleration is happening here. So you'd think it'd be somewhere under some kind of performance or something, but I wouldn't. Drawing? Well, things haven't really been breaking lately, so I think for my purposes, I'm just going to skip that for the moment. Okay, so what I was talking about is, if we go back to the previous shot, okay, she's looking left, right? Okay, so now we get here, and she was looking to her left. She looks back at the exit to the tent, and then she's checking to see if the coast is clear. So it seems to me that indeed she would look back this way. So now she's looking over her right shoulder, and so the main thing here is, let's not do this. This is a jump cut. It's kind of a little clunky. So I think that the storytelling is going to be cleaner if I actually center this up and do a smash zoom on it. We don't need to have a silhouette of her head. I'll tell you the truth. I learned the same lesson when I was making films. Early in my filmmaking career, because I was my own cinematographer, right? I was running the camera too. And yeah, that could be, I don't know, Tom. Anyway, what I found was early in my filmmaking career, I had a proclivity to tell the audience more than they needed to know. I didn't trust my audience, you might say. And so as a result, whenever I had a dialogue situation, I was always trying to do an over-the-shoulder shot. So over-the-shoulder meaning one person's talking here, and you see the other person's head here. And then about 4 or 5 movies into it, I finally got my courage up, and it absolutely improved my visual storytelling to where I would just frame these guys up properly and just bounce between them and just do, you know, these guys are looking this way and this guy's looking this way. And I found that it strengthened my visual storytelling. The proclivity to feel like you need to kind of like tell the audience that the other person's there is a pretty immature thing. But, you know, believe me, I did it for quite a while, actually. It's purely about courage. It was, I mean, from my point of view, having been the guy that dealt with it, it was purely because I just wasn't confident that the story would play without telling the audience everything. And it turned out that it played much better by being a little bit more crafty with my my visual storytelling. So I'm going to go Control-C, Control-V so that I can actually just go like this, because that's what's in the storyboard. And that's what she's going to see. And then again, we're going to have a smash zoom on that. Now, if you want to be really picky, it's kind of another example of what I'm talking about. You say, well, yeah, but how are they held up there? So yeah, okay, fine. If we're going to be meticulous about it, you might have some little wing dingers that are holding the thing up, kind of thing, right? So, have you heard of the rule of 180? Yeah, well, exactly. And I have rarely, but sometimes broken the 180 rule. It's happened. I think it's happened maybe twice actually in this show, where I have broken the 180 rule. But yeah, it's pretty important. You want to be okay. So what Tom's describing is this: if you could have a drone up overhead, and so I've got 2 characters. There's some action going on right here, and the camera is on this side of that line. Okay, especially if these 2 people are talking, if you have a dialogue situation, you're gonna really confuse the audience a lot. If you choose a new shot, like let's say I say this is my wide shot, there's my wide shot or medium shot really, and now I want to go to a close-up. Well, if I bring the camera over to here, it is really going to jolt the audience. You can get away with it sometimes, but if you're going to go to the close-ups, you really want the camera to be here so the camera stays on this side of the line relative to your actors. It's really a simple rule that 99% of the time you would do well to respect that rule. Sometimes you can get away with it, and mainly in the scenario I just described where you're not providing context. So if I'm dealing with this guy's in a close-up talking, then I go to this person, and maybe they're in an even tighter close-up talking, because maybe from a storytelling standpoint I'm maybe building the tension. So my next shot goes back to this person, but now we're closer, we're pushing in a little bit, so we've got some tension building. Can you then jump to a shot where you're going back to this character, but now they're like this, where you're on this side of them? Yes, you can, but you do so judiciously. Proceed with caution, and that can. Well, you can break the rules specifically to create confusion, and there's a time for that. In your visual storytelling, sometimes you want to throw the audience off balance. So there's definitely a time to break the rule. But put it this way, I would venture to say that usually when people do break the rule, it's in the context that I just described, where you're dealing with a dialogue situation. And the reason the rule got broke, probably in most cases, is because an inexperienced filmmaker sensed that this would be a really dramatic shot. Oh, we're going really tight. And they just weren't thinking, and they were maybe moving too fast, and they just kind of made the boo-boo of flopping onto the wrong side. But, again, there's a time for it, for sure. Okay, so we got this done, this done, this done. That's going to be a smash zoom. Now we need this. So we're rocking here, folks. Since this is going to be a smash zoom, we'll say it's probably going to take about a half a second. So we'll just go here and start drawing the close-up. Maybe to show how one character finally understands. Well, yeah, I mean, it's all got to do with the story you're trying to tell, It's just that what I'm saying is, for most people, most of the time, it's probably, if they break the rule, it's probably not going to be because they did it intentionally. They're probably going to break the rule because they didn't realize they did it. And they get back to edit and they go, oh, crap. And what you find is, it's not that big of a deal. It's really not. I mean, the audience, maybe they're jolted for half a second, but basically it's not that big of a deal. Okay. So what are we going to do here? This is kind of tricky because I don't have the context of her whole head. So I got to be a little careful. I can always pull the eyes a little closer together or further apart if it feels more apropos. We'll put her Bindu in there so we know we're dealing with Tianara. And then, boy, gosh, this will probably be animated. I mean, really, you're going to want to probably, let me flip this just to make sure. Yeah, there we go. I'm glad I flipped it, because we definitely have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. This is too small, and it's a little off kilter. Okay, so, and getting back to things like the 180-degree rule, what I just did for most people is really good practice. Flip the canvas. It is the cheapest, fastest, simplest way to make sure your scene isn't introducing some you acclimate. I mean, that's the bottom line. You acclimate. Your eyes acclimate, your brain acclimates, your ears certainly acclimate when it comes to audio to what you get used to, and you get used to it pretty quickly. That's why I'm drawing quickly. I'm drawing quickly because I want to smack down as quick as I can what's in my head, and then move on, and then come back, and hopefully I'll recognize problems that I literally did not see the moment before. It's happened, a million times. So if you do it, don't cry about it or don't feel bad. It's perfectly normal. But there's some tools you can use, like respecting the 180-degree rule, that just will make you tend to make the mistakes less often, which is, with drawing, flipping the canvas is a real cheap one. You could do the iris scale there too. So Max is doing what Max does, which is which is thinking about the visual storytelling and chiming in with some ideas about how it might be made more impactful. So that's super cool stuff. But yeah, you're right. What I was actually thinking, I wasn't going to do like a parrot, a dilation, or a shrink. Okay, so I wasn't going to go take pupils that are like this and have them shrink. You could do that, but what I was planning to do is probably, excuse me, is these are going to, that's going to go like that. These are going to come down like that. And there's going to be a smash zoom in. So we're going to be pushing in, eyebrows down, lower eyelids up. And that definitely signals what she's thinking. In order to accomplish that, all we really need is one drawing, but just keep the eyebrows separate and probably just put the eyelids, frankly, on a separate layer. So that's going to be another half-second smash zoom. So we'll go to 42 for lack of a better idea. Yep, and then again, now this is more courageous. See, I tell you, this is actually such a great example of what I was talking about. It's embarrassing to admit, but there was a time in my visual storytelling where I would not have done this. To just cut from here to here to this, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have had the courage to do it. I would have wanted to show her going from here or here over to here, which is stupid. Trust me. You don't. Again, it's embarrassing. Probably some people be out there going, yeah, duh. But it's true. I really used to be a pretty wussy visual storyteller. And so, okay, so for this shot, what I'm going to do is grab this, Control C, go here, hit the B key, boop, hit the S key, hit Control V, so that I can take this and just really raise it up like that. Now we're going to get into, let's just call it, common sense protocol. We could go to a medium shot, but that would be kind of stupid, because why do we want to give ourselves a lot more stuff to draw if it doesn't seriously help the shot? Like it really matters. If it doesn't matter, then let's go with something more like this. And all we have to do is animate her hand coming in and reaching and actually reaching out just to clasp the sword. And we don't even have to actually show her grab the darn thing. All we have to do is show her hand come in. Let's see what comes next. Yeah, okay. So to be fair, what's in the storyboard essentially is grabbing the sword and popping it off. So let's at least put that in there. So here we go. What we're going to do is we've got this, and I'm going to actually add another color here just as a, to say, hey, this is an animated element. So we're going to have, and I do actually want to make this a raster brush. Okay, so I'm just going to draw the shape, basically, of her hand. She's going to reach up, and I'm going to actually pop that back up to 0 so we get a little bit more density on her. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we got to make a decision. Are we going to actually animate this whole thing or not? We could. You know, it looked pretty cool. Let me see if I copy. Oh man. Okay. So then we're going to have to get to this. Okay. I guess I kind of blew the scale there a little bit. Let me redo that. So what I have going on here is multiple colors, because this isn't a raster level, so I can't just change colors. I have to add another palette entry. But basically what I need to do is block in those knuckles. So the knuckles are there. Okay, fine. So putting those little circles as guides keeps me from being stupid, because if I start drawing like this, you know, I'm the hand and animate them both and very quickly smack them both off the screen moving as a unit. And that's really all we need to see. So we've kind of got, this is probably 1 second. So I'm going to say 8 frames. You know, reach up, grab it, pull the hand out, we're done. Okay, and then it cuts to this. Again, this is a little more good sense, bold storytelling in that I just cut to her destination, and then we see her hand come down to lift the tent up. So I would say, being critical of myself, I would say the storytelling here is actually pretty good, because it is bold, it is clear, you know what's going on, you know she got that sword, and you know what she's about to do. So there's no reason to show her getting from here to here. She has to literally walk across the room to get from here to here. Why would you show that? Right? So you wouldn't. So at this point, I would say this shot is going to be saved, because the next shot per the storyboard is actually a duplicate of a shot we had earlier. So there's no reason to bake that into this Tahoma scene. So there we go. So we have a 52. Boom. Boom. Okay, that's too quick. Okay, so boom, bop. Yeah, what we want to do is we want to have this on the screen for essentially 4 or 5 frames, and then the smash zoom. So we see it, and then zoom in to give it our attention. Back to her. Same kind of thing with her, and then this is a static shot where the hand gets animated. So I think that's probably our whole sequence. Boom, boom. And by the way, this feels too long, but it's not. And the reason it's not too long is because actually these poses are going to repeat, right? So actually this is going to be, I'm hitting the Q key here. 5. This needs to be 4. And then this, yep, goes to 7. So yeah, there we go. So boop, boop. Yep, and I like that. I like that. She zips away, but it cuts. You know, you just see her moving is all. That's good. So all we need to do is kind of know she's moving, and then that's going to have a smash zoom. That's going to have a smash zoom. I feel like this was still a little bit short. Boom, bop. Yeah, that's just about maybe 2, 3, 4 frames too short. And the whole kit and caboodle winds up getting us to about 8 seconds. Not too shabby. Boom, bop. Smoosh, smash, pop, okay, yeah. So it's a little bit musical. It's got a nice musical rhythm to it that I think works. And so, hey Ajax, welcome to the live stream today. You will need a line between the eyes too. Okay, Max. Okay, Max. Let's see what you're talking about there. What is Max talking about? The line between the eyes. Oh, I know what Max is talking about. I think. You're saying that when the brows furrow, you're going to have this. Is that what you're saying? Why 2 accents with a smash zoom? Fair question. It's a fair question. Camera move or a smash zoom on every single shot would not be that unusual. I tend to be a little more judicious about my use of smash zooms. But here, it certainly would make sense to have a tiny push here, big push here, little push here, no push there. So to have a camera move on every single shot except this last one, which in a lot of anime, you'd still have a slow push in, just so things are moving. But I guess the answer is it ramps up the excitement level. She's in a situation where she just went through this confrontation that pretty much firmed up her resolve that she does not want to be here. She's already worked out what her potential avenue of escape is. So this sequence we're working on right now is literally the pinnacle of the energy level in this whole longer sequence. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, yeah, use mirror and you will see it. That's true. I think what you mean is, I don't know, but I'm guessing maybe what you meant there is that here again, flipping the canvas may provide some insight as to how well that shaped up. So Are those lines necessary? I would say probably not, but I'll probably add them anyway. I mean, they certainly help a little bit. So there you go. But yeah, I would say your question's a good one. And if you were going to adhere to anime convention, you know, kind of what people are used to seeing, I would say that you probably would have these camera moves on every single shot except the last one. Actually, it's just that's what we're used to. It's a fairly it's a somewhat frenetic type of storytelling, you know, and it works. It's good. It's good. It's fun. Blah blah blah. So now what we have to do is, as we go along, we have to think about layers. You know, think about how this thing's going to layer up. What's going to have to move, maybe relative to other things that aren't going to move, such that it makes sense to put them in separate levels, such as the hand that grabs the sword. In all reality, for example, this shot, the hand, the sword, and the rest of it, including the second sword, should be 3 separate levels, so that you can animate the hand with frame-by-frame animation, and then once the hand gets to here, we'll use the Animate tool to just take the hand and the sword together as a single unit and pull them back down off the screen. Now this is interesting. Actually, I'm glad I'm breaking this down, because there's another point here that is probably worth considering, which is that the blade of the sword should probably be done as a vector level, if we can make it look good, which I think we can. Why? Well, because vector levels have an infinite canvas, so I'll be able to draw the blade of the sword way up here like this, so when she pulls it off, we're not going to have the end of the sword disappear, right? Because the raster level, you know, it ends here. There's no way on a raster level to continue this drawing off the screen, so that's something to think about. Okay, okay, Max, you should also have the eyes closed in V shape to avoid tweening. It's so crazy how in most live action there's always a slight camera motion, but we don't even notice. Yeah, I would say yeah, and to Max Magnus's point, I would say on that last comment, I'm probably not going to do that. You certainly could, but I actually think that potentially that will break her characterization more than I prefer. And so what you're saying, I believe, is that you're going to have a bit of an angling down like this of the eyes into each other. And again, I will say I'm gonna veto that one. I actually don't want to do that. That's if I'm understanding you correctly. And to Animator Island TV's comment, yeah, I mean, I remember watching an interview with the late Stephen J. Cannell where he was talking about, boy, back in the 80s when they were producing television, the idea of a moving camera was anathema. I mean, you never did it. And yet what you saw pretty much through the 90s into the present is a lot more of that. A lot more handheld, which I don't like. I think it's hardly ever done well. Like, if you wanted to talk about, I tell you this, if you want to see the moving or the shaking camera done in a way that is really effective, I think, and suitable to the material, I would look at Tony Scott's movies that he did with Denzel Washington, like Deja Vu, Unstoppable. Those movies, the cinematography and the visual storytelling and the use of quick smash zooms and things like that, super effective. They really knocked it out of the park. So I'm going to hit the B key and boop, create a level here, and let's rock and roll. So we have to make a choice here. Are we going to make the foreground separate from TNR? And I would say yeah. It's kind of stupid to, if she's going to be animating over the top of it, why are we going to redraw the couch every time? So I'm going to ignore the couch. So my normal course of action here is about a 30% smoothing. Seems to be about right for me. And then just for completeness, I'm going to indicate for my own enrichment where the kind of the bottom extent of her, well, plus I need to have closed shapes anyway so I can fill them, but so there's that. Here, let's just keep rocking. We'll add a little bit more wrinkle action here, and I'll turn on the onion skins just because in this case it makes sense to match it as closely as I can. But now I want to turn it back off because it's going to distract me from making sure the, I mean, this isn't a great example of it, but just you want the integrity of each shot or each drawing to kind of stand on its own, if you will. So anyway. All right, so here we go. Now we're getting into, we can get to see our character. All right, again, I'm just going to use this as a guide to, so we have closed shapes. And as you can see, and I can hit Control-Shift-F to make sure that is going to fill, because I have the fill check tool mapped to Control-Shift-F. So B key, boom, boom. Her hair situation, a little bit of a twiggly diggly there on the hair. Like that. I like it. I like it muy mucho. Okay, I like going fast like this. I really do. Alright, this might kind of sneak up a little bit like that. And I'm not going to finish out her face at this time. I'm just going to kind of essentially get some of the grunt work done here. Just do the grunt work. This actually probably should have that little indication as well. Okay, and now I'm gonna toggle here. Okay, so yeah, what I want to do, am I hitting the wrong key? I need to put in a drawing here and a drawing here so I can move fast. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, boom, I'm gonna basically get this. Yep, that kind of worked. So I'm letting that kind of clump up a bit as she twists around. So what I'm doing is I'm essentially attending to the twist dynamic here first before I go too much further. All right. So now, there's no reason to dink around and take forever. We know what we're doing, right? Boom. Where you want to slow down is on the, generally on the face and the eyes especially, because if I get to be in a hurry, it's really easy for me to let my characters slip off character a bit. So let's just rock and roll, man. Let's just do it. Go, go, go. So yeah, getting back to the whole crypto thing. So what I did was I basically did a 2.5 hour experiment, 2-3 hours, where I, because the underlying wider time frame was supportive of what I wanted to do, I said, yeah, let's take a risk. Bought Bitcoin, wound up, once I made a profit, I sold out my profit, but left the principal amount in there. And then, once I saw the trend, the way it was going, I went ahead and just sold it all out, because basically it's in a consolidation stage right now where it's just going to be flopping around anyway. So why have your money tied up in something that's just flopping? So I'm actually going to look here. I'm curious what's happened. Yeah. And actually, yep, exactly. See, we called this completely right today. Because basically this is where we exited, and now 2 hours later it's just languished in the same place. So what we got was essentially, let's see, we got to go back to 7 a.m. So basically what I got, because the indicators supported doing so, was an entry point about well, it's this line. So I entered here and then I exited here. So so those of you who are curious, if you really want to know, I will say that, let me hide this. So what it looks like is this. This is just for those of you who might be curious about how this type of thing might work. So if you go to this 1 hour chart, what do we see? Okay, what we see here is we see a lower low, or I'm sorry, from this low, we see a higher low and a higher low. We also see a higher high and a higher high. So that, and then also we see here that this 10 exponential moving average has crossed above the 30. So that tells us that this is a pretty strong established trend that's been going on since about 8 o'clock this morning. Okay, so within the 1 hour time frame, I say, okay, well, it would be within the 15-minute time frame that I want to trade, about a quarter of the time frame. Our entry point then would have been here. Is that correct? No, that's not correct. 15 minutes. Oh darn it! I lost my perspective. I wish it would lock on the. Oh yeah, that is actually correct. This is actually what I traded. Come to think of it. So yeah, you got these two trends. So I got my time wrong. This is actually from yesterday. Okay, so that trend supports the idea of trading within this time frame, and the same characteristics were true here. A higher low each time, and then we had a dip here, and then higher highs each time, right? So when you get this cross, this becomes your signal to buy. And then, so that's kind of how it works. It's not a particularly complicated system, but to the extent that I've been able to try it, I've found that it works quite well. This indicator is quite useful too, because if this is trending up but it's touching against this Bollinger bubble, that tells you it's probably going to reverse, and almost all the time it does. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. You don't want to risk your life savings fiddling around with it until you get a little experience, which I'm still learning, but it certainly is. Today it was a way to make $100 basically between 7 and 9 a.m. Which is kind of fun. Boop boop doop doop. All right, here we go. We got this. That I don't like. This is a little stupid looking, but this is only on the screen for 1 frame, so we have a little bit of latitude to not be too persnickety about characterization or anything else. Nobody's going to see it. It just goes by too quick. Okay, so we got that. Maybe a little indicator there. Boom. Okay, so let me see. Not eyes angling, eyelids. Oh yeah, the eyebrows will definitely. Yes, Max, for sure. Yeah, that I did intend to do. Hey, Golden Slime. Money will be worth half or 1/3, like after 2008. Well, correct. I mean, yes and no. I mean, Max is bringing up an interesting... I hope I didn't put you to sleep. No, I know you didn't expect it, but it's just it's just kind of what I'm doing. But yeah, there are concerns about inflation. And so the only way what Max said would be true is if inflation was such that the purchasing power of every dollar you have, or whatever your currency is, was sliced in a half or a third. I actually disagree strongly with Max's statement. I don't think that is what's going to happen. There's too much incentive in the marketplace, both governmentally and in the business climate, to all incentives among all players who can affect that progression towards inflation or not are highly incentivized not to let it happen. Now, there's reasons it'll happen to a degree, but it's kind of like the adoption of Bitcoin. If you think about it, if you went back 6 months or a year, you'd say, this is still kind of a fringe thing. But once you see big players like Elon Musk and others, and actually major fund managers who are making Bitcoin part of their holdings, all of a sudden you're getting this momentum in the marketplace to make darn sure Bitcoin succeeds. Like, everybody together is incentivized to see it succeed one way or another. So what happened yesterday was not a problem. Yesterday was a necessary correction because the market is hopelessly overbought right now and inflated. The inflation is not in currency. Okay? To be clear, the inflation is not in currency right now. The inflation right now is in the market itself. You have an incredible bubble that has to correct itself. That's why people should be really cautious and look for those opportunities. Like my point when I talked about 2008 was that if I had known then what I know now, I wouldn't have had that 4-month wait where my my fund that I had at the time had to recover. It wouldn't have happened because I would have seen the signs and I would have exited the market for 6 months or whatever. And there very well could be a time very soon where that's a darn good choice. That would be the right choice, possibly. You know what? I don't even think I want to draw these guys. I think I'm going to bake these into the background painting. So I guess I'll just put a drawing there so there's something there so I can keep my timing going and just keep going with the character stuff. Animation and Bitcoin trading channel in one. Who knew this is something? Well, I mean, to me, I look at it like this. If you're, there's people here are going to be all over the map in terms of their age, and where they're at in life. And frankly, the more you know, the better. For me, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I basically, and most of what I learned that has turned out to be useful, I learned here on YouTube. List. Yes. So this is my current watch later list, but this video right here, this is kind of cool. This guy, Trader DNA, I don't know where he's from because it's like a digital voice, but this is the video that actually showed me this strategy. And then I've added a couple little things to it that I've learned that have helped, but basically it's a really sound strategy. And you could sit and do the math to understand why it actually makes sense that it protects you. It protects you your risk, right? Because that's what we're doing, is we're trying to mitigate risk while seizing upon opportunities. Again, here, I think what we'll do is we'll probably put the lower eyelid on a different level. So yeah, I hope that's not like a turn off for anybody. I mean, I would want, if you're a young person, if you can begin to invest. So now we're getting into the social political conversation. We've got a culture where so many people are so close to the bleeding edge financially in terms of their month-to-month costs that they can't afford to invest, or if they do, they have to take a gamble that is likely to backfire because they either don't know what they're doing, or they just risk too much because they need a quick lucky break in order to just get some momentum to move forward, kind of thing, right? And I find that very, very sad. I haven't done the greatest job of that in my life. In fact, funnily enough, I actually was just kind of in a saving mode, and it was only last October that we decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and educate ourselves and start taking our savings and making it work for us. But I didn't want to do what happened in 2008 where I was trusting a broker. Nope. I said, this time around, I'm going to do this the way I've done everything else in my life that's worked, that's been successful. I'm going to take full responsibility for learning at least the fundamentals. Whoops, this is rather difficult, actually. And then make my own decisions. And that has worked out much, much, much better for me. It's actually the reason why I have been chasing Bitcoin, is because it's mainly because it's just not that hard to do, and it was pretty easy to see as I educated myself that there was an opportunity there. But at the same time, I could see about a week ago that opportunity was closing. Hence, I had literally sold out everything And believe me, it was tempting not to. It was, we'll just wait. It might be okay. But all the analytics, all the technicals told me no. This sucker's going south. And if it turns north again, you can always just rebuy. And oh my God, what boy was I right. 2 days later it tanks, it loses half its value in a day. Crazy stuff. Okay. This is really turning out to be an exercise in stupidity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the geometric tool, which is this. And we're going to do a circle. Fortunately, with the circles expand out from the center. So yeah. Yeah, Dave, you could have done that 10 minutes ago, except you're so busy talking about the stupid Bitcoin, right? I get it. Fair enough. I stand corrected. Actually, let's not do that. Let's do it this way. Let's take the S key. That way we know they'll be exactly the same. Control C, Control V. Drag this guy over here. Just turn the angle right about there. And now we know that they're actually equivalent. Okay, so same thing again. Actually, I sound like those guys in Fairy Tale. I sound like the archaeologists who are the actually guys, like this guy. Every other word he says is actually. Control C, Control V. Let's put that there. And now we're gonna go B key. Smack that up there like that. Smack that down there like that. That will be filled. Easy peasy. Gosh. Golden Slime, what's going on? Oh, okay, yeah, great. And Animator Island TV, you kind of new here. I haven't looked at your channel. I'll do it right now. Always eager to see what guys on my channel that are, attending the live streams, like what are you guys doing, and who else is creating a cartoon, Wow, you got 20,000 subscribers. Okay. Good stuff. That's super cool. Yep. Well, anybody who's got a bigger audience than me on YouTube, I'm always really grateful that that you'd waste your time here. My whole angle is the pragmatic view of it's not about OpenToonz, even though I use OpenToonz or Tahoma, whatever you want to call it. It's about what's the real world job we got to get done today in order to make a show. And the good news is we've almost crested below. Let me see. Actually, as of today, today's the day. You guys, this is great news. Look at this. Today is the day that we've actually crossed the 6 minute line. In other words, there's only 6 minutes to go for episode 2 to be fully animated. So we got episode 2 here, and we're basically knocking out the middle of it. And then, of course, episode 1's been done. So, no, I appreciate it. Animator Island TV. I certainly don't deserve my audience by any stretch. It's a little I don't know. If somebody's learning the software, like I just at a glance at your channel, it looks like you're probably a Blender person. So I would guess. And me too. I've been using Blender since the year 2000. Since you're new here, I will say, as an anecdote, you may find it funny or interesting that I was, in fact, the first person on the planet ever to create a Blender training video. And this was back in, like, 1999 or 2000. In fact, I went to SIGGRAPH in 2000 and met Ton Rosendahl, and that's a fun story, too, about the whole period of time when they got this venture capital, and the whole thing was just a real debacle. It was a mess. Almost cost Blender its life, actually, if the truth be known. But happily, Ton is a really smart guy, and he figured out a way to incentivize the money people to find a way to let Blender continue, even though it was essentially being scuttled as a project. So, yeah, my goal, Animator Island TV. My goal is essentially 15 seconds a day. What I've discussed with my initially I was thinking I'd shoot for 30, and you can do it, but I'd have to work all day. I mean, I have to really be focused all day long to knock out 30 consistently. So I've done it a few times, but generally I don't know that I really want that aggressive of a pace. So when I talked it over with my distributor, um, he seemed quite comfortable with the idea of a 4-month production cycle. So if I knock out 15 minutes a day or 15 seconds a day, well, you just do the math. 24 minutes of show, that means that you've done all the animation in 96 days. But that's really working about 3 hours a day on the actual animation. So that means I still have plenty of time to have a life, do my my market trading that I've been doing more lately, and post-production, writing the music, doing the voices. Well, I'm not doing all the voices, but I actually need to do a casting call here shortly. Obviously the editing, all that stuff, writing the episodes, because we're targeting 12 episodes here. That's what we're shooting for, but we're going to launch it with 2 episodes that are kind of a 2-part pilot, basically. So that's the plan, man. So yeah, and what I find is 15 seconds a day is actually pretty easy. I don't always hit it. Like yesterday, because there was so much going on with the market, I think I probably got maybe 8 seconds done. So there are days where I don't hit my 15 seconds. But aggregate, I do, and the reason is because if you look at these shots, like this shot, oh, there it is again. Oh, this shot, there it is again. That shot used the same one we just saw a little bit earlier, right? So you get the common reuse. So what happens is in these dialogue sequences, it winds up being kind of easy to get like 20 or 30 seconds done. So the aggregate comes out to an equation that says you could probably create a full episode. Especially another thing to consider, actually, is the fact that a real episode is not 24 minutes. It's really 22. Because you've got your intro segment and your outro segments that are going to have to be in there. So, the pace I'm working here today turns out to give you a complete show in about 4 months. A complete episode, I guess I should say. That's the math, and the math doesn't lie. So... still a very good animation target. Yeah, animate smarter, not harder. Yeah, it's stupid to read. No, I'm doing actually a lot of I'm definitely doing a lot of hand-drawn animation here today. I'm gonna change my mind here a bit on the direction for eyes. I'm gonna actually turn this off so I can kind of see this. Yeah, I'm not sure. Whoops. Not sure I'm loving that. Oh, come on, Tahoma. You're gonna do that thing. So Tahoma just did something stupid that I've seen it do before, and it's probably not undoable. It's sort of undoable. So this is I don't think this is actually here. I don't know how else to say it, but it might be. So this is a really obscure bug. I've bumped into it before, but what happens is you somehow manage to be on the X sheet but still have the brush invoked. And what happens is when you move your stylus over here, it starts drawing when you didn't mean for it to. And whenever that's happened, you wind up with this stuff that hitting undo doesn't seem to want to get rid of it. So it's a really, really weird bug that would be hard to reproduce exactly. So the world will probably keep on turning if I have to like redraw a couple things. So yeah, we would love to do 15 seconds a day, and then as I've discussed here, we're either going to be doing a crowdfund to underwrite the production timeline, or I've really got to. I really need to tighten up this pencil drawing. Actually, this is throwing me. I don't have a good guide under the sheets here. So what I'm going to do is I'm flopping because I don't have a clear guide. So I'm going to say, and this by gum needs to be back to -1. Okay, so now I'm going to hit the N key and see if that works. So we really kind of have a problem here. I think I've bumped into this before. This is actually one of the hardest things to get right. Yeah, there's one. Yeah, Animator Island. That's such a great question. There's really only one. There's one feature, and that's it. And the feature is, because I've done so much of this show in Krita, Tahoma lets you use the Windows clipboard to actually take either a single layer or a group of layers that are all stacked up with ink and paint and shadows and everything, and literally just cut and paste them into Tahoma into a raster level. So the cut and paste functionality is the single killer feature reason why I use Tahoma. That's it. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't even be using Tahoma. I'd be using OpenToonz probably. Now, maybe not. The differences are so minor between the two that to me it's like, what's the difference? It's the same program. You know, that's the way I feel. Other people may feel differently. But, okay, so now what I'm trying to do is kind of reconcile this so that these match. So the character turning around where the eyes have to be synchronized, but yet they're kind of in a different position just for like dramatic effect or whatever. Trying to get the two irises to feel like they're working together is really hard. This is probably okay. That looks about right. So I think we're okay here. Let's turn this down. Yeah, that looks good. So let's ink this and then we'll be back on track. So will we crowdfund or will we not crowdfund? I have all the pieces in place to launch a crowdfund. But before we do it, we wanted to explore the possibility of a platform underwriting the show and you know, basically having exclusive rights to it for a period of time in exchange for again helping underwrite the production costs. So if anybody's interested and you really want to know, I will tell you that my number is $36,000. So what's it cost? And by the way, by any standard, that's a super low price. I mean, for what I'm making here and for what it would you would think if you go and say, hey, what does it cost to make animation? How much does one episode of animation cost? You know, you're going to see stupidity that's in the millions of dollars. And yeah, you can spend that. You can do it. Do you need to? Not so much. So my target on a crowdfund would be $720,000 to underwrite the entire 12 episode arc that represents the beginning, you know, essentially the first season, if you will, for lack of a better term. And so, but the real initial target would be $72,000 because that underwrites the first 2 episodes. What I've done is I've gotten a jump on the process. So that, because my thinking was, if I'm going to do a crowdfund, I want to really be sure I'm going to be able to deliver the goods. So since the animation on the first 2 episodes is really well underway, I mean, actually we're like easily 3/4 of the way done, right? So there's no question those first 2 episodes will in fact happen, right? So that's my thinking. I just don't want to throw something out there and ask people for support on something that is just a fly-by-night thing that maybe it's going to happen, maybe it's not. Unfortunately, I can't read Russian or whatever that is. Okay. So here, boom, 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 and boom. So if if there's no platform that says, yeah, this is a cool concept, we want to get on board with this, this is super cool. If that doesn't happen, then probably the next course of action is crowdfunding, and I would expect that I would have the help of my distributor to promote the crowdfund, because you know it makes sense for them. I mean, if the property has some traction socioculturally, then that just means they're going to be more successful distributing it, you know, and earning revenue from it. So it behooves them to support me in a crowdfunding situation. And since they have 500,000 YouTube subscribers and a lot of other stuff in their marketing pipeline, it would stand to reason that would be helpful, right? Okay, looks like we're in good stead at the moment. We're in very good stead. Now the question becomes, how do we want to start to layer up? Well, I think what I'm going to do is a couple things. Number one, I'm actually going to take my guide and put it on top so that it doesn't disappear when I start filling in color. So there's step one. Step two is I need to get some color going on TNR. So let's rock and roll on the browser. We'll go to our drawings folder, and we're just going to search for a recent TNR TLV level that we can steal the palette from. That's all we're doing. So we're just going through the browser. We're going to find a picture of TNR, which I know is here. There's a likely candidate, and we're just going to load it. Okay? Now, this is probably a good time to say, let's save our work. You know. Okay, so now having done that, we can take this. I'm not going to grab the outline color because usually I just kind of wing it on the background or on the outline. So I'm going to Control C and Control V. Now I've baked her palette into it. I can delete that. There's no reason to keep it here. And then just as a matter of due diligence, I'm going to go to my scene cast and remove all unused levels. That just keeps my Tahoma file clean. And now I save it. Okay, so now Tahoma's saving. All right, so my mid color, or no, my dark color is the hoodie thing. So fill that in normal mode. Boom. 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 Ooh, we got a leak. Okay, so now let's have some fun. Let's put in the gap closer and see how it does. Let's close and fill with a distance of 10, and it still didn't work. Well, if we get into a much bigger gap closer, in this case, it looked like it worked. Yay. Okay, so we'll keep our gap closer. Let's just split the difference and put it at 25. Boom. That's looking good. And blah, 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 blah. Okay, so now let's go back and start working with some of the other colors. Now, the sofa that's covering her up from here, this will all be covered up. So we don't have to worry about anything down here. Okay? Boom. Okay, so now we got to get her hair in there. Yep, hair. And as you can see now, let me undo that. The gap closer is going to cause more of these little hiccups that have to be addressed later. And if we have to address a bunch of little tiny gaps, we've gained nothing by using the gap closer, because at the end of the day, we're going to wind up having to spend just as time dinking around with the shot. So, unfortunately, though, what we see is, even without the gap closer, yeah, that's too bad. We still have to go through and do the old lasso thing. So, I guess the world will keep on turning. That's got no hair, and here. So if you wanted to mitigate that problem, you'd do your coloring this way. You'd probably lasso things. Ta-da. Boom, boom, boom. And here we're going to actually lasso her eyebrows. And you know, I may actually even wind up using the plastic tool to color the... Okay, hold on. We have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. I need to close that gap. And close that gap. Okay, so now there's a couple things we might want to think about here. One is, maybe what we want to do is take and lasso this, just so that her hair color kind of gets filled in there. That would probably not be the worst idea I've ever had. All right, and then we want some iris color. And now that I've used the Smart Raster paintbrush tool to close these gaps, then we should be able to fill these. And we got a leak. Yep, it's right there, right in front of our face. Fill that. Okay, cool. So now we've got her bindu, boom, and we've got her skin, boom. Interesting. This, okay, first of all, why did it fill everything, including her eyes? Okay, so this is an OpenToonz thing. Here's what's going on here. Actually, if I fill this in with the this what OpenToonz calls the paintbrush tool as opposed to the brush. It's not the brush, it's the paintbrush. Tahoma calls it the Smart Raster brush tool. Well, here's the catch, which it's the V key turns it on. The catch is that if I close this area and then fill it, it works. But as far as this outside area is concerned, that gap doesn't. That gap is not closed. So stupid as it is, I actually have to close it with my regular brush too. Yeah, that's silly. So now I expect, yep, well, okay, is that what we wanted? I think that's what we wanted. Okay, so now this is interesting, I said a moment ago, because we don't quite have, we really don't quite have what we need here. I'm going to take her hair color. Let's see, the hair would be, I'm going to just maybe go here. And I don't know if we can fill this. Let me try the lasso and see what happens. It'd be interesting to see if it, hello? Why would it have filled it with this color? That's a little bit silly. Okay, so that's okay. We'll bend the knee and submit to the way Tahoma wants to do it, which is to actually draw it with the brush. Okay, the reason I did that is because technically you probably have some little gap areas here that really should be filled to frame in her face. I'm not really buying that her face, you know. In fact, this, I'm actually going to say this should be that color, the headdress. I think that works. Okay, cool. All right, so looks like there's no real comments on the chat too much going on. So, all right, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna zap back here, back here. What time is it? 11:25. So I'm planning to wrap up at noon. So you guys have been forewarned. This. Uh-oh. Come on, get in there. Okay. Now this, I'm going to actually hit the brush in order to just really clarify that. And we're going to do the fill the areas. Looks good. Fill the areas. And now, hopefully, the skin area will fill with a regular normal fill. Oh, it did. It looks pretty good. Obviously, keep in mind this is really zoomed in, so you're seeing a lot of noise that's really not going to show up on the screen, as it were. So, little cleanup here, little cleanup there. All right, boom, boom, boom. Missed a little spot there. Come on. So yeah, I used to do, getting back to Animator Island's question, comment, whatever it was. I used to do most of this show is actually it would probably be fair to say most of it's been done in Krita, actually. But as I've been working with Tahoma recently, I've just found that I just haven't been bopping back to Krita. I've been pretty happy with the way things have been looking. So I think the rule here with the Smart Raster paintbrush tool is that if you do a fill with that same color, what's going on there? Oh, I'm seeing the underlying sketch. So if I do a fill where I've blocked it up so there's no leaks, using the same color I'm filling with, then it works. But it does not respect filling with a different color. So I could still use the Smart Raster paintbrush tool, but I would have to put a line here, something like that, in order to be able to fill the face and have it fill properly. It's a little bit silly, but I tell you the truth, actually, the Smart Raster brush tool is super, super useful for just, you know, hand paint, touching stuff up. It comes up kind of frequently, as a matter of fact. So, but let's keep rocking here. Okay, this is an interesting state of affairs. Why don't we just use this color? We'll kind of do this the anime way. We'll just add a little gradient thing. Why not? We're feeling frisky today. Let's do what we want, because by gum, this is our show. We get to do what we want to do. Okay? Fill tool, boop. Fill tool, boop. Boop. Ah! And that just happened because of the reason I just described. It's like when you're dialing in this close, it's probably just easier to just hand paint it in, really. Just fill it in and be done with it. Don't cry about it. Don't complain. You're not a victim. Not at all. You're our best and brightest. That's what you are. All right, fill tool, boom. And we need to go back to the, yeah, see, this is what I was talking about, hand painting, just dial it in, getting these little corners and stuff. It's just super easy with the Smart Raster, a paintbrush, a tool. Looks like a comment. That's a good question. It would make a difference for sure. Krita has awesome brushes, but I was struggling with the way copy and paste works in Krita, at least back when I tried it. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. I would bet money what you're talking about is the fact that the one thing you have to get used to with Krita is that, especially if you're coming from probably most other programs, is that every single time you cut and paste something, it creates a new layer. And I agree with you, that is pretty disconcerting at first. But what you find is you just learn to hit Control E a lot. And if you're animating, it becomes a big win. And I'll demonstrate very quickly why. Okay? So I'm going to open Krita, and then I'll pull up something maybe that I've done recently-ish that may factor in here to what we're doing. But I'll demonstrate a couple things here about Krita, why it's a really useful adjunct to Tahoma. So I'm waiting for Krita to open up. Okay, so here goes Krita. Let me see what we have in our recent files. And oh, Hexters. Let's grab this one and see what it is. I basically haven't touched Krita in like 2 weeks, even though I've done tons of animation with it in the last couple of years. Oh, geez, this shot, this is ancient and not something I'm interested in having to look at the moment. So, oh, and that's a Photoshop file. Oh my, I'm making nothing but mistakes. Let's see what happens. Okay, well, that's all right. We'll work with this. Okay, so the problem someone has typically is you say, okay, say I want to move her eye a little bit, right? So you say, grab her eye, and I want to go Control X, Control V, and then maybe hit the Animate tool or the Free Transform tool and move it into a slightly different position, because she was a little off character, let's say. Well, the thing that's going to freak you out is that it actually put it on another layer. But the thing is, especially with animation, that's often a good thing. Because, first of all, if you don't like that, just immediately hit Control E. Like, after you do the cut and paste, just hit Control E. Because then it's going to bake it down into the layer that you just cut and pasted from. So as far as cut and paste goes, if you get used to hitting Control E, it's not a problem. But from the standpoint of animation, it's a big win, because what you do is you say, and this isn't a great example, but if you had stuff that was animating along a timeline, because this is in another layer, you could this would actually bake into the entire sequenced animated timeline, which means that the cutting and pasting that creates a new layer becomes super useful for making corrections. You know, if I looked at this and I said, you know, like this is a great example too. This isn't so much cutting and pasting, it's more of just a painting thing. Like if I wanted to fix this, the problem is if this was animated, you'd have to fix it in multiple animated frames, right? So forget that. Just create a new layer. Grab your brush, sample the color you want, and just color that in. And yeah, except what happens when it doesn't color? Did I not grab the color I wanted? Okay, for demonstration purposes, I want to see what's going on. And wow, what a great time to demonstrate the fact that for some inexplicable reason, sometimes Krita just decides to quit painting. Like the drawing function is not working at all, which I've only seen ever happen like 3 times ever. I have seen it, but let me see what happens if we draw into this layer. Yep, drawing doesn't work. So, well, it might be a great example of why I haven't been jumping into Krita as much lately, because frankly, while it's the version of Krita I've been using recently is the best I've ever used, it's more performant and it's more stable, it's still not even remotely stinking close to Tahoma in terms of either performance or stability. It's way less stable. It always has been. It probably always will be, although it has improved. So what's the big win with Krita? The big win is that you can take not only a layer with some image elements that you've painted, like especially background paintings. You might have a background painting with 6 layers, okay? Well, you can take each of those individual layers and just cut and paste them directly into Tahoma in different layers here, in which case you can use your schematic to do like layer blending, like blending modes and things like that. Or from Krita, if you're really happy with your imagery, just take all your layers, hit Control G to put them in a group, and then you can actually copy the whole group. So the whole composited group as a single flat image then can cut and paste into Tahoma. So it's very flexible. I'm deeply sorry on behalf of Krita that as I sit here and try to demonstrate one thing, Krita decides to act stupid. But let's bear in mind, people, that's completely normal for Krita. It always had Tahoma to sort of find a way to take everything I had been doing in Krita and make sure that I can kind of match it in Tahoma. It turns out that Tahoma is generally looks just as good. Actually, visually, I've probably been getting at least as good, if not better, results in Tahoma. So if we go back to the beginning of the show, all of this, this is all Krita. None of this is Tahoma, like, at all. It's all Krita. So you can definitely get the results in Krita. But in recent days, this is mostly Krita. And then this stuff, getting into this zone I'm working on right now, is mostly Tahoma. And then all this at the end of the show is mostly OpenToonz, actually. But in this area right here, we're getting into a bunch of shots like this, that these are all Krita. So it's like visually you can't tell the difference, really. You know, it's not like there's an advantage in the sense of what it's going to look like. Okay, yeah, see, harmony, that's right. And this is the argument I've made. I've made the same argument about, you know, as much as I rant sometimes about open source software, just because of the, let's say, you know, just complaints about the development cycle, you know, and buggy software, okay? The problem is that it's not like you're any better off with commercial software, because you're not. There are good ones. You know, Reaper would be a good one in the realm of commercial software. You know, as far as an digital audio workstation, I've scored 8 movies with Reaper. I've used the same version of it actually now for 10 years. Great program. And, you know, it's one of the ones that gets it right. Tahoma's pretty close. I mean, the Tahoma OpenToonz thing is pretty close. Blender certainly is in that zone. You know, But Blender, you got to remember, when I go back to the time when I started working with Blender, every single release, you know, for every bug they squashed, they introduced 5 new ones. I mean, it was not until well into the Blender 2.5 period that I mean, this was my complaint. When we went to Blender 2.8, my complaint was this. Everybody said when we went from 2.49 to 2.5 that it was going to be this amazing increase in productivity. Oh, it's going to be so great. It's going to be amazing. It literally took them 10 years to get from 2.5 to 2.79 to where it was actually starting to shape up and be stable. Now, you still could get work done. I did. I used it for a lot of motion tracking in one movie. Used it for virtual backgrounds, you know, green screen stuff in another movie. But you know, you use it at your peril and you make sure you save a lot. But my point was it took 10 years. By the time the 2.5 run of Blender finally got to the point where it was like pretty stable, then it was all about the run up to 2.8. And why was that so exciting? Well, because it's going to be so much more productive. It's going to be productivity up the wazoo. Wait a minute. That's what you said 10 years ago when we were building up to 2.5. So like history is totally repeating itself, right? So, and it's all been good. I mean, I use 2.81 is the one I favor. 2.93 is looking real interesting. I have that on my system. 2.79 is a great fallback because it's super, super stable. It's really hard to crash it. So you just, you know, absolutely, Maria's correct. You know, you just need to freaking save your work. And by the way, I am going to actually add a white here. I need to get some specular in here. By gum and by golly. Now, here, actually, I'm going to use the Smart Raster Paint Tool, and I'm going to do the speculars. We might as well do them. Get them in there. They look good. They always look good. And so why not? Here we got this one, and then here what we'll do is technically, you know, you talk about flipping the 180-degree line. I'm actually doing that right now. If I'm not mistaken, I'd have to go back and really think about it because I am a little dyslexic. But I'm pretty sure to be correct, and again, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the reflections actually would want to be on the other side of her eyes. But I suspect very strongly that my audience is going to forgive me for that one. I'm going to go ahead and do this too and just kind of make them pop a little bit. Why not? It's cool. It looks fun. All right. So, yeah, it's all good. I mean, my toolkit is Krita, Blender, Tahoma. That's my toolkit. And for the most part, lately it's been 80% Tahoma. And then of the three of them, it's 80%, it's 96% Tahoma and Krita, and it's 4% Blender because I just don't have that much CGI or motion tracking or any of that kind of stuff that I need to do in recent history. So, hey baby. My beautiful wife is walking past me. She's beckoning me. She's beckoning me. I think I'm going to go to her. Okay, so that's it. I think I'm going to quit. I've done a... Yes, excellent. 2-hour session, pretty much. I've gotten close to 2 hours. And I may come back and do more later in the day, but this is great. This is going to be... The bad news is, because there's so much action, it's going by pretty slowly. Tell you what I'll do. I'm gonna... Yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap it up. I had some other things I wanted to do after noon today, and we got somewhere to go in the afternoon. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up and figure I'll finish this tonight or tomorrow. And so thanks guys for being here. It's been a lot of fun. Hope I haven't bored anybody too much with all my yakking about things that aren't necessarily about animation. But you know I love you. I love you all. I love you too much. And it's all good.